Be Attentive, Series 8, Volume 19, July 18th, 1926. For many years and years, I hid from you that I wanted to form this supreme kingdom in you. I prepared you. I formed you. I enclosed myself in you, in the depth of your soul, in order to form it. And when everything was done, I manifested the secret to you. I spoke to you about your special mission. I asked you in a formal way whether you wanted to accept living in my will. And even though you trembled and feared, I reassured you, saying to you, "Why do you trouble yourself? Have you perhaps not lived with me until now in the kingdom of my will?" And you, serene again, would make more of a practice of the living in it, and I would delight in expanding evermore the boundaries of my kingdom, because it is established up to what point the creature must take possession of this kingdom, since its boundaries are endless, and the creature is incapable of embracing them all, because she is limited. And I, my love, yet my fears have not completely ceased, and many times I am so frightened that I fear I might act like a second Adam. And Jesus, my daughter, do not fear. You have more help than Adam did. You have the help of a human God, and all his works and pains as your defense, as your support, as your cortege, which he did not have. Why then do you want to fear? Rather, be attentive to the sanctity that befits the living in this celestial kingdom, and on your happiness and fortune, because by living in it, one gaze of mine is enough for you. It is enough for you to hear one of my words alone to comprehend its goods, while for those who are outside, one can say that they understand only that the kingdom of my will exists. But as for what is inside of it, what it takes to comprehend it, they can just barely understand the alphabet of my will. Volume 19, July 23rd, 1926. So the many knowledges about my will shall serve my will itself as glory and triumph, and will serve the creatures as path to find life and to receive it. The height and immensity of my will shall serve creatures, so as to never let them stop, but always move forward in order to reach it as much as they can. And the multiplicity of these knowledges will serve the freedom of each one to take what they want. In fact, each knowledge contains life. If the veil of each knowledge is broken, they will find in it, as queen, the life of my will. The more they take and do, the more the life of my will shall grow in them. Therefore be attentive in manifesting the qualities, the infinite riches it possesses, so that the heaven of my will may be more beautiful, more charming, more majestic, as indeed it is, than the heaven of creation, so that enraptured by its beauty, by the goods it contains, all may yearn to come to live in the kingdom of my will. Volume 19, July 29th, 1926. In addition to this, creation was made for man. In it, he was to be the king of all created things. But by withdrawing from my divine will, man lost the regime, the dominion, nor could he form laws in the kingdom of creation, as is usual with a king when he possesses a kingdom. In fact, having lost the unity of the light of my will, he was no longer able to rule. He had no more strength of dominion. His laws had no value. Creation was for him like a people that rebels against the king and makes of him its laughing stock, And this is why my humanity was immediately recognized by the whole creation as its king, because it felt in me the strength of the union of one single will. But as I departed, it remained without king again, enclosed in its silence, waiting again for someone who, in the kingdom of my will, would emit his voice to let it resound in it. But do you know who she is who will put all creation in feast once again? The one who will form its echo and will render it speaking again? It is you, my daughter, who will take back the dominion, the regime, in the kingdom of my will. Therefore be attentive and let your flight in my volition be continuous. Volume 19, August 4th, 1926. My daughter, let us put everything aside. Let us speak of the kingdom of the supreme will, which interests me so much. Don't you see how I am always in the act of writing its qualities, its celestial laws, its power, its divine prodigies, its enchanting beauty, its infinite joys, the order and the perfect harmony that reigns in this kingdom of the divine Fiat, in the depth of your soul? First I make the preparations. I form in you all the properties of it, and then I speak to you, so that by feeling its properties within yourself, you may be the spokesperson of my will, the crier of it, its telegraph, and the little trumpet which with a shrill sound may call the attention of those passing by to listen to you. The teachings I give you about the kingdom of my will shall be like many electric wires, which are such that, when the appropriate communications are established and the necessary preparations are made, a single wire is enough to give light to entire cities and provinces. The power of the electricity, with rapidity greater than that of the wind, gives light to public and private places. The teachings about my will shall be the wires. The power of the electricity will be the Fiat itself, which with enchanting rapidity will form the light that will cast away the night of the human will, the darkness of passions. Oh, how beautiful the light of my will shall be! In seeing it, creatures will dispose the devices in their souls in order to connect the wires of the teachings, so as to enjoy and receive the power of the light that the electricity of my supreme will contains. Do you want to see what will happen? Look, I take one wire of my teachings linked to your soul, and you emit your voice within the wire. Say, I love you, I adore you, I bless you, whatever you want to say, and be attentive on looking. Volume 19, August 18th, 1926. Don't you yourself see and feel with how much love I guide you, I accompany you, and many times I reach the point of doing what you do together with you? And this in order to give to your acts the value of a divine value. How happy I am in seeing that by virtue of my will, your acts are divine, similar to mine. There is no more distance between your little love and mine, between your adoration and mine, between your prayers and mine. Invested by the light of the eternal volition, they lose their finiteness, their human appearances, and acquire the infinite and the divine substance, and transforming altogether the working of God and of the soul, my will makes them one. Therefore be attentive, and let your flight in my will be continuous. Volume 19, August 22nd, 1926. My daughter, there is nothing more penetrating than light. It diffuses everywhere with enchanting rapidity, bringing its beneficial effects to all those who let themselves be invested by it. The light refuses to do its good to no one, be they people, earth, water, plant, or other things. Its nature is to illuminate and to do good, and therefore it leaves no one behind. To all it brings its kiss of light and gives the good it contains. My will is more than light. It diffuses everywhere and brings the good it contains, and the acts done in it form the atmosphere of gold and silver, which has the virtue of emptying all the darkness of the night of the human will, and with its beneficial light it brings the kiss of the eternal volition, to dispose the creatures to wanting to come into the kingdom of the supreme Fiat. Each act of yours done in it is a new horizon that you make arise for the eye of the human intellect, to make it long for the light of the good that my will possesses. My daughter, in order to prepare this kingdom, it takes work. It takes celestial laws, which are laws all of love. The laws of fears, of penalties, of condemnation do not enter into it, because the laws of love of my will shall be friendly, filial, of reciprocal love between creator and creature. Therefore fears and condemnations will have neither force nor life, and if there will be some suffering, it will be full of triumph and of glory. Therefore be attentive, because this is about making known a celestial kingdom, about manifesting its secrets, its prerogatives, its goods, to draw souls to love it, long for it, and to take possession of it. Volume 19, August 29th, 1926. To everything that enters into my will, the creative power of my will communicates its own nature and converts it into its own acts, because it does not tolerate having within itself acts dissimilar from its own. Therefore it can be said that the acts of the creature done in my will enter the inscrutable ways of God, nor can anyone know all of their innumerable effects. That which has no beginning and no end renders itself incomprehensible to created minds, which have a beginning, because since the power of an act that has no beginning is missing in them, all the divine things and everything that enters my will render themselves impenetrable and inscrutable. See, then, the great good of operating in my will, to what high place it raises the creature, how she is given back the nature of good, just as she was delivered from the womb of her Creator. On the other hand, anything that can be done outside of my will, be it even good, cannot be called true good. First of all, because the divine nourishment and its light are missing, and these acts are dissimilar from my acts, taking away from the soul the likeness of the divine image. In fact, it is my will alone that makes her grow in my likeness. Once my will is removed, the best is removed, the greatest value of the human works. Therefore those are works emptied of substance, of life, and of value. They are like plants without fruit, food without substance, statues without life, works without retribution, which tire the limbs of the strongest. Oh, how great is the difference between operating in my will and operating without it! Therefore be attentive, and do not give me this sorrow of making me see even one act in you which does not give of my likeness. Volume 19, August 31st, 1926. No sooner than the creature places her will as the footstool of ours, to let it dominate, will we open the doors for her, to let her enter, because it was the human will that closed the doors to ours, and opened the doors to miseries, to weaknesses, to passions. It was not her memory or her intelligence that placed themselves against their Creator, even though they concurred, but it was the human will that had its first act, and broke all the bonds, all the relations with a will so holy. More so, since all good and all evil is enclosed in it. The regime, the dominion is its own. And so once the will has failed in good, everything fails, loses order, decays from its origin, becomes ugly. And since it was the human will that placed itself against mine, causing all goods to fail man, this is why I want his will. And in exchange I want to give him mine, to give back to him all the goods that had failed him. Therefore, my daughter, be attentive. Never give life to your will if you want mine to reign in you. Volume 19, September 9th, 1926. Suppose you wanted to unite light and darkness, copper and gold, rocks and earth. Would one not distinguish with clarity the light from the darkness, the copper from the gold, the rocks from the earth? And this because these are materials, one different from the other. But if you united all together, light with light, darkness with darkness, gold with gold, you would not be able to distinguish nor separate the first light from the second, the first darkness from the second, the first mass of gold from the second. So it is with my will. What it itself does in the creature is light, and it is no wonder that it becomes incorporated in the single act of its eternal light. Therefore, in these times so stormy, and with a vertiginous race in evil, I could not give greater grace than making known that I want to give the great gift of the kingdom of the supreme Fiat. And as a confirmation of this, I am preparing it within you with so many knowledges and gifts, so that nothing may be lacking to the triumph of my will. Therefore be attentive on the deposit of this kingdom, which I am making in you. My daughter, if the one who guides you and directs you gives you this obedience, it means that he has understood that it is I who speaks to you, as well as the value that even a single word of mine contains. My word is light, and is full of life, and the one who possesses life can give it. More so, since my word contains the creative power, and therefore a single word of mine can create innumerable lives of grace, lives of love, lives of light, lives of my will within souls. You yourself will not be able to comprehend the long way that a single word of mine can cover. Those who have ears will listen. Those who have heart will be wounded. So the one who guides you is right in giving you this obedience. Ah, you do not know how I assist him and remain around him while he reads my writings and yours about my will, so as to make him comprehend all the strength of the truths and of the great good contained in them. And he makes his round in my will, and by virtue of the light that he feels, he is sending you this obedience. Therefore be attentive, and I will help you and facilitate that which seems difficult to you. Volume 19, September 12th, 1926. My daughter, my humanity possesses the kingdom of my will, so much so that my whole life was dependent upon it, and by being dependent on it, I had the intelligence of the Supreme Volition, its gaze, its breath, its operating, its steps, its motion, and eternal heartbeat. In this way I formed the kingdom of the Supreme Fiat, its life and its goods, in my humanity. Do you see, then, what it means to form its kingdom in you? I must transmit to you what my humanity possesses, which will administer to you its thought, its gaze, its breath, and everything I possess for the formation of it. See how much I love this kingdom. I place my whole life, my pains, my death at its disposal, as its foundation, guard, defense, support. I will leave nothing out of myself which will not serve to maintain the triumph and the absolute dominion of my will in full vigor. Therefore do not be surprised if you see the different stages of my age and of my works, being as though repeated in you, and you see me now as a child, now young, now crucified. This is the kingdom of my will present in you, and my whole life lines up inside and outside of you as guard and defense of my kingdom. Therefore be attentive, and when some fear assails you, think that you are not alone, but that you have my whole life as help to form this kingdom of mine within you, and continue your flight, constantly, in the unity of the supreme light of the divine will. It is there that I await you, to give you my surprises in return, to give you my lessons. Volume 20, September 20th, 1926. What would you say if you saw a star going out from among the others and descending down below? Would you not say, "It has gone out of its place. It no longer lives a communal life with the others. It is a lost star"? Such is one who, living in my will, wanted to do her own. She moves away from her place. She goes down from the height of the heavens. She loses the communion of the celestial family. She gets lost away from my will. She gets lost away from light, from strength, from sanctity, from the divine likeness. She gets lost away from order, from harmony, and she loses the rapidity of the making her round around her Creator. Therefore be attentive, because in the kingdom of my will there are no unwillingnesses or bitternesses, but everything is joy. There are no strains, but all is spontaneity, as if the creature wanted to do what God wants, as if she herself wanted to do it. Volume 20, October 22nd, 1926. Each truth about my eternal fiat contains more power and prodigious virtue than if a dead man were resurrected, a leper were healed, a blind one could see, or a mute could speak. In fact, my words on the sanctity and power of my fiat will resurrect the souls to their origin. They will heal them from the leprosy produced by the human will. They will give them the sight to be able to see the goods of the kingdom of my will, because until now they have been like blind. They will give speech to many mute, who while they were able to say many other things, only for my will were like many mute without speech. And then the great miracle of being able to give to each creature a divine will that contains all goods. What will it not give them when it will be in possession of the children of its kingdom? This is why I keep you all occupied with the work of this kingdom of mine, and there is much to do in order to prepare the great miracle that the kingdom of the Fiat be known and possessed. Therefore be attentive in crossing the endless sea of my will, so that the order between creator and creature may be established. In this way, through you, I will be able to make the great miracle that man return to me, into the origin from which he came. Volume 20, October 26, 1926. My daughter, not only Adam, but the whole of heaven awaits your acts in my will, in order to receive the honor that their human will has taken away from them. You must know that I have placed more grace in you than I placed in Adam, so that my will might possess you and dominate you with triumph, and yours might feel honored never to have life, and to give the place to my will. In him I did not place my humanity as his help and strength, and as cortege of my will, because I did not have it then. But I have placed it in you, to provide you with all the necessary helps, so that your will might remain at its place, and mine might reign, and together with you might make your rounds in my eternal volition, in order to establish its kingdom. On hearing this, surprised, I said, "My Jesus, what are you saying? It seems to me that you want to tempt me and make fun of me. How is it possible that you have placed more grace in me than in Adam?" And Jesus, "Certainly, certainly, my daughter. I had to make it so, that your will might be sustained by another divine humanity, so that it would not stagger, but remain firm in my will. Therefore I am not making fun of you, but I am telling you this, so that you correspond to me and be attentive." Volume 20, December 10th, 1926. And just as all the power of the Fiat dwelling in the creature was needed in order to impetrate redemption, and my humanity, that possessed that power, was needed in order to form it, in the same way, in order to impetrate the coming of the kingdom of my Fiat itself, another creature is needed, who would let it dwell within herself, and give it free field in order to form its life, so that my will itself, through her, may accomplish the one and most important prodigy, its coming to reign on earth as it does in heaven. And because this is the greatest thing that will place divine balance in the human family, I do great things in you. I centralize in you everything that it is necessary and decorous to know about this kingdom of mine, the great good it wants to give, the happiness of those who will live in it, its long story, its long sorrow, and of many centuries, because while it wants to come to reign in the midst of creatures to make them happy, they do not open the doors to it, they do not long for it, they do not invite it, and while it is present in their midst, they do not know it. Only a divine will could bear with such invincible patience, being in their midst, giving them life, and being not even known. My will is great, endless and infinite, and wherever it reigns, it wants to do things worthy of its greatness, of its sanctity, and of the power it contains. Therefore be attentive, my daughter. This is not about just anything, or about forming a sanctity, but it is about forming a kingdom for my adorable and divine will. Volume 20, December 19th, 1926. And so, this is the reason why my supreme will calls you, awaits you in each created thing, to make known to you the riches that are in it, to make you repeat its divine acts together with it, and to give you the rights of possession. You yourself become its own property. You remain dissolved within its immense riches and within its very acts. And oh, how the divine Fiat enjoys making you the owner of its immense riches. Its desire of constituting its heiresses is so great that it feels twice as happy when it sees one who knows its possessions and makes its divine act her own. So much so that even though it saw that man, by withdrawing from its will, lost his way to reach the possession of its dominions, it did not stop, but in the excess of its love and of its long sorrow of seeing its riches inactive for the good of creatures, as soon as the eternal Word clothed himself with human flesh, it constituted itself life of each of his acts, so as to form more goods for them, powerful aids, and effective remedies, more within the reach of decayed humanity, so as to realize the purpose of making them possess what was issued in creation. There is nothing that comes from us that does not have this purpose, that the creature and everything return into our will. If it were not so, we would render ourselves extraneous to our own works. So creation, redemption, my daughter, have the primary purpose that everything be our will, in heaven and on earth. Therefore it flows everywhere. It is present in every place, to make everything its own, and to give everything that belongs to it. Therefore be attentive in following our works. Satisfy this desire so insistent of my supreme will that wants those who possess its goods. Volume 20, December 22nd, 1926. Now who will be able to resist the light of my eternal fiat? All of its knowledges will be more than rays of light of my volition that will beat down on the surface of the earth, and penetrating into the hearts, will bring the good that the light of my will contains and can do. However, these rays must have their sphere from which to start. They must be centered in one single point, from which to arise in order to form the dawn, the day, the afternoon, and the sunset within hearts, to then rise again. The sphere, the single point, is you. The rays centered in it are my knowledges that will give fecundity to the generation of the children of the kingdom of my will. This is why I always repeat to you, be attentive, so that not one of my knowledges may be lost. You would cause a ray to be lost from within your sphere, and you cannot even comprehend all the good it contains, because each ray contains its own specialty of good that it must do to the children of my will. And you would deprive me of the glory of that good for my children, and would deprive yourself also of the glory of spreading one more ray of light from your sphere. Volume 20, February 16th, 1927. Therefore the operating in my will is the greatest miracle, and the fullness of all acts united together, and the triumph of the divine act in the human act, because my will was as though sterile in the midst of creatures, and is now made happy by its first daughter, in whom it sees the many births from itself that will come to light. So it will live no more as a sterile mother in the midst of the people, but as a mother fecund with many children. It once was a widow, because in creating the first man, it espoused the human nature, dowering it with the immense riches of its will, as the seal of the marriage it formed with man. As he withdrew from it, it remained a widow for many centuries. But now it has removed the mourning of its widowhood, and marrying again, has taken on its garments of bride again, and has put out once again its dowries into the field. And the seal of the dowries are the knowledges about it, through which it gives the gift of the riches it possesses. Therefore, my daughter, be attentive in preserving your garments of bride, and in enjoying the dominions that my will has given you as dowry. Volume 20, February 19th, 1927. You fight with me when investing everything I did and suffered in my humanity, that is, my tears, my most intimate pains, my prayers, my steps, my words, and even the drops of my blood. You impress in them your I love you, and for each one of my acts, you ask for the coming of the kingdom of my supreme Fiat. Who can tell you the fight you make with me? You move my very acts to wage battle on me, that I may surrender and grant you my kingdom. Therefore I fight with you, and you fight with me. This fight is necessary, to you in order to win my kingdom, and to me in order to win your will and to begin the battle in the midst of creatures, so as to establish the kingdom of my supreme will. I have my own will, and all of its very power, strength, and immensity, in order to win. And you have my will itself at your disposal, all creation, and all the good I did in redemption, in order to launch a formidable army to wage battle and win the kingdom of the supreme Fiat. See, each word you write is also a fight that you make with me, one more soldier that joins the army, that must win the kingdom of my will. Therefore be attentive, my daughter, for these are times of fight, and it is necessary to use all means in order to win. You have reached the end of the Be Attentive series, Volume 19, Part 3, and Volume 20. Fiat.